Hello, this is Stampy Longnose, and welcome to a new Let's Play of the Xbox 360 edition of Minecraft.
Hi, I'm ThaMango, and today I'm going to be working on transforming what is probably the most nostalgic build in the history of Minecraft. Stampy created 823 different videos in this world, and I'm going to be updating the house that they all began in. I'll be adding in newer blocks and redesigning a lot with more modern building techniques, to give an idea of what Stampy's lovely world might have looked like if it was built today, rather than in 2013. If you want to see me also transform some other areas of Stampy's lovely world, or even the whole thing, please make sure to let me know in the comments and to leave a like. Also, before we begin, I just want to make it very clear that this is in no way an upgrade to the original build. In my transformation videos, I always try to never use the word upgrade, as I only transform or update builds with newer blocks and building methods. The original is a perfect build, and it's probably going to be better than whatever I come up with. I'm just doing this for fun and so we can look back at the old build. And finally, if you're wondering how I got my hands on the original world, it's a 1-to-1 remake built by Ben and Jack's Let's Play. I'll leave a link to their YouTube in the description in case you want to check out their content or download the world. Anyway, let's begin. This is probably going to be the hardest transformation to explain what I'm doing with, as the house doesn't really have much of a specific layout from the exterior. It's more of a lot of different square and rectangular buildings, which are connected by various tunnels and pathways. I decided to start everything with this main center building though, which is where various bedrooms are located, including Stampy's iconic room where he begins all his videos. While I'm trying to keep the design similar to the original, one thing I did decide to change early on was the roof. Previously, the entire roof was made out of wood and sandstone, which caused it to blend a lot with the walls, and so I instead switched it to a nice vibrant orange, which stands out against the wood and obviously fits Stampy's theme very well. With the roof completed, I then worked my way to the balcony, and just shaped it to be a bit more rectangular to fit in with everything else. And I added in some more sturdy looking supports underneath it. It's now a bit more spacious to walk around. And then for the center building, I quickly edited the design of the walls on either side, as I wanted to make sure that every surface is transformed. We're not going to be ignoring anything, or it will stand out like a sore thumb once we're finished. Around the back of this building is where you'll find Stampy's guest room, which is currently home to Hilda and Henry, or at least was before they left Stampy's world at the end of the series. Just like the other walls, I mixed in some stripped oak planks, and framed the giant window with some trapdoors. Moving upwards, you'll find the music tower, which stems out of the central house. Before doing anything to transform this, the first thing I knew I had to do was adjust the shaping a bit. Previously, the building on top of the tower was a kind of stretched circle shape, and so I wanted to clean it up a bit and just make it a bit more circular. I then switched out the various coloured wall blocks to be carpets on the outer fences, so that you can still get amazing views from the balcony that runs around the room. And then finally, after mixing up some of the blocks and adding in further details, I changed the torches that were placed all along the water spout to instead a couple of lanterns. My main focus of this tower though was to ensure that you can still get amazing views of the entire lovely world from the top, and so I added a small bench to sit on while you look out and admire the lovely world around you. That's enough admiring for now though, let's get back to building. We're next going to move on to the left part of Stampy's house, which I refer to as the living area. While the entire house is designed to be lived in, this is where most of the more realistic rooms are located, like his bathroom, kitchen, library and living area. We'll be doing all of the interior at the same time later on, but for now I just went around the building adding in plenty of extra details. I expanded the block palette a bit, just so that it wouldn't look as repetitive, but I did try to mostly use oak and sandstone so that this will still look like Stampy's house once we're finished. If you look at this build once we're done and can't recognize it, then it means we failed. You'll also see me add various flowers in different spots around the base, like in small pots along some of the windowsills in this area. I mostly used orange tulips as they blend in quite nicely with the house, and obviously once again orange is Stampy's colour, so it works well. Now before we get to the docks, I also made some adjustments to the roofs, adding in more details and a more clear outline to this really cool skylight that looks into his inspiration room. As well as this, I expanded the roof a bit on Stampy's clubhouse. which helps to just give the structure more character, but will also give us more room to work with once we get to the interior, as I have some cool plans for this room. Now if you've watched my other videos, you'll know that I'm not really good at building boats, and so I asked my friend PatBuilds to transform the ships. He did a great job with keeping the general shapes of the ship, submarine and yacht, while adding in some extra details to just make them a bit more realistic. He even added Stampy's face to the sail of the SS Stampy. While I won't be doing interior until the end, it's also worth showing now that he even transformed the interior of the ships, while making them a lot more fun to explore. To tie these new ship designs into the area, I transformed the dock that connects them to the house, making it look a bit more realistic and used, with a bunch of barrels scattered along it. I also built a small platform underneath the cargo crane to make it a bit more practical to use, and to add some extra height to the area, before making a few small adjustments to the design of the crane itself, like by adding in a big circular weight to one end of it. And then lastly, I detailed this big deep slate wall that separates the dock from the rest of the world, before adding some other small details along the pathway that wraps around the building that we just transformed. For the paths themselves, I kept the original spruce and birch checkered pattern. I tried experimenting with other designs, but nothing else looked like it belonged in Stampy's world, and so I just kept it how it was. And now with the left area done, it's time to move to the right side of Stampy's house. And I thought the best place to begin with this would be with the love garden. This is probably the most memorable part of the base, and maybe even his entire world. It's where he would credit the most loyal and supportive fans on all of these signs, and as he had so many, it even ended up overflowing. I decided to try and make the love garden more garden-like, switching the fences around it to be leaves, and adding in a bunch of flowers between all of the signs. And now, as I mentioned, Stampy had to expand the love garden to fit more names. And anyone who hasn't watched his videos in a while might not know this, but the garden actually expands downstairs. There's this really cool room which looks like it was flipped upside down, and I decided to really push the theme with a Stranger Things vibe, inspired by the upside down, with pitch black walls surrounding the underground garden. And now, going back above ground, I began work on the rest of the exterior structure. There's not really much left to do until we can begin the interior, which I'm really excited for. For the exterior of the crafting room, I kept the stone colour scheme which really stands out from the rest of the base. And then I moved around to the exterior of the storage room, and then to the main entrance of the house. Keeping the shaping identical to the original was really difficult, and I did have to switch up a couple of shapes on the roof design just to make everything work, but I'd say it still looks pretty faithful to the original design. I even added big circular windows to the main entrance of the house, which pay homage to the previous checkerboard window design, but these larger windows just help to let more light in and keep the inside feeling fresh. While I'm not transforming any other structures around the lovely world yet, I did want to transform the wishing well next to the base as it's so close, and I just gave it a more realistic design. To finish this area off, I added a small wall to divide the terrain from the river below, and then began work on the lower area of the base. There are a bunch of paths and staircases here which connect the house to the further away areas, like the doghouse and the farms, which I will be counting as part of the house. This was probably the most challenging area to transform other than the interior, as it's very compact, so there's not much I can change without it being too cluttered. I added in a small bridge to make it easier to navigate, and just to make it a bit more scenic, before adding some extra details to the walls just to break them up a bit, as well as some extra supports to the pathways and staircases. To add more atmosphere, I then also added some lanterns and extra life to freshen the area up, like lily pads and potted plants. As you can guess, we'll be doing the interior of the doghouse later, but for now I just added some extra detail to the entrance, as well as the Harry the Horse's hut. Behind these you'll find this structure. I couldn't remember what it was for or find anything about it online, but I believe it's an old school mob farm. I'm not sure if it still even works, but I decided to try and transform it anyway, before moving to the rest of the farm. Stampy's farm is actually located on top of the doghouse, and for the design it's the only area that I decided to completely redo, just because the original was a very standard farm. Once I'd removed the farms, I then replaced them with this new design. It's once again a very standard design, but it helps to fill the area up more. I even added a small scarecrow to watch over the crops. Next to it, I left some room to build a small greenhouse, where less common crops can be grown, like melons, pumpkins and neverwort. I thought they'd look a bit odd being grown out in the open, and so they fit in much better inside the greenhouse. I wasn't too sure what to do for Stampy's tree farm. Originally I was just going to remove it, as he'd have no need for it anymore anyway, but that felt wrong. Instead, I just neatened up the terrain around it to make it blend in a bit better. There was no point replacing the trees with custom trees, as the whole purpose is for them to be chopped down to harvest for wood. And then to finish the exterior, I just went around and added some extra small details, like some adjustments to the paths that wrap around the house, and some extra rocks to make everything look a bit more natural. But with that, the exterior was completed, and I think it looks pretty cool. I don't want to show it off too much, as I'll do some cool before and after shots at the end of the video. But before that, let's get to the interior. The interior is going to be difficult to build for a number of reasons. The main reason being that you can't really change the walls of the interior, or it will ruin the exterior. For my Hermitcraft transformation videos, this wasn't really an issue, as often the exterior of the base would be hollow, with the interior being located in small boxes inside, with plenty of space between the two. Here though, I'll have to try and work with the walls that we've got, using thinner blocks like trapdoors to cover up any blocks that look out of place. You'll probably spot a lot of trapdoors in the house, especially now that I've mentioned it. For the storage room, I tried to open it up more, to make it less claustrophobic inside. To do this, I just made larger gaps between the floors, with fences outlining each as a safety barrier, so that you don't accidentally fall. This helps to make the room feel much larger than it actually is. I then added in a lot of chests to help keep it as a good storage area, and then finished the room by hanging plenty of flowers down from the central waterfall, which makes it look like a cool sort of chandelier. This is one of the few things that wouldn't be possible to make in survival, so I originally wasn't going to add it, but I wanted to. I kept this painting that's located in the storage area, because behind it is a secret enchanting room. Just to highlight what I said earlier about the walls being thin, the floor is the same in this base as well, and so there wasn't really much room to work with. What I did do though is lift up the ceiling as much as I could, and I opened up the room by moving this enchanting table to the center, with some magical candles floating around and some enchanted armor sets on the side. And now to finish up this area of the base before we move on to the middle section, I transformed all of the other attached rooms, including the smaller storage area, the mines which you can access below the waterfall, and finally Fred the Enderman's room, which has become even more clustered with blocks that he's been collecting over the years. I was kind and even expanded his door so he can actually walk through into his room rather than having to teleport. And now we move to the central part of the base, where all of the main bedrooms are located. This area has a central plaza just like the last area, but it's slightly smaller in size. Like previously, I just opened it up to make more space inside, and now the room is just the perfect place to relax in the morning, with the iconic waterfall running down the center. You'll hopefully recognize this room as it's Stampy's bedroom. Walking into this room brought back so much nostalgia, and so I really wanted to make sure that I didn't change much, so that the magic wouldn't leave the room. I made some very slight adjustments to the balcony, using trapdoors as they're thinner than the previous slabs, which helps to make more space. I also added a bunch of bookshelves all around the bed, to add some extra colour to the room, as well as some extra knowledge. Finishing the room, I added some final touches like some lanterns. On the opposite side of this area is the guest room, which has been given to multiple people over the years. I was originally going to convert it back to its original state before Hilda and Henry moved in, but instead I decided to keep it in its current state, like it's been frozen in time despite them moving out. Moving directly on top of this room is the helper's bedroom, which includes a vibrant carpet design which I kept, as well as plenty of beds for anyone to use. This is where most people are invited to spend their first nights in the world before they can make their own house. And with the bedrooms done, I then moved over to the final room of the main structure, which is the living area. There are loads of rooms to explore in this section, and so I'm just going to quickly show you some of the transformations that I made. There are also a few other rooms in both this area and elsewhere that I transformed, but I don't want to show you them in this video as I want you to explore them for yourselves. If this video manages to reach 10,000 likes, I'll post the world download for this house for free in my Discord. I'll leave a link to join in a pinned comment. There are still a couple of interiors left to do though, so don't click off yet. This next room is probably the most exciting room in the house. It's the clubhouse. This is the go-to place for any parties to be held. I really wanted to modernize this room, making it the ultimate location for parties. I covered the lower windows with orange curtains to help keep the light out, and then added in a much newer looking DJ booth with plenty of speakers made using black shulker boxes. As well as this, I added a bunch of colourful candles into the air, which look like floating confetti. On the other side of the club where the bar is located, I raised it up by half a block just to help clearly differentiate the two areas. I then added in some pillars which hold up the new VIP area, which includes a giant orange sofa, a ton of cake, and an amazing view of both the dance floor and the lovely world from the sky window. Underneath this VIP area is the bar, where I added a ton of shelves using empty bookshelves, and I then finished this area with some colourful banners which are hanging from the ceiling. I'm really happy with how this room came together. I think it might be my favourite, especially at night time. Once I was done partying though, I suddenly remembered about the secret lab located under the base, which I'd forgotten about before. This is where a bunch of experiments took place, with most being Stampy's really well edited milestone videos, which were always great to watch. I modernised all of the contraptions, including the extremely powerful cake baking machine, as well as the highly iconic time machine, the cloning contraption, which I filled with a lot of cloned cats, because you can never have enough cats, and finally the teleportation machine. At this point we only have the doghouse left to transform, so let's see if this machine still works. For the doghouse there's really not much to transform. However, for the main room where all the dogs would be normally located, I tried a cool wall design which uses vases mixed with bricks to make a slightly more 3D design. To finish, I added in some small dog beds, as well as a bunch of bones and pork chops all over the floor, which the dogs were being treated to before they left the lovely world with Stampy. And then we were done. I really hope you liked this transformation. It was a lot of fun to make, and as I mentioned, I do think the original is better, but this was a really fun trip back to my childhood. If you also enjoyed it, please do consider leaving a like and subscribing. And of course, make sure to leave a comment suggesting what to transform next. I know I ask that a lot, but it seriously helps me out more than you could ever imagine, and I love reading every single comment. I'll see you soon with the next video.
For the final time, from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye!